Sentry mode activated. Target acquired.
Hey there, hunters. Yeah, I still play Monster Hunter, sorta. Today I want to talk about the gunner meta setups for the prep for the Sunbreak release, since PC now has USJ armor, and I really don't think we're going to be getting any more weapons and armor until Sunbreak. I do want to explain what we're using and why, so there's going to be a little bit of preface here. Apologies. There's going to be a lot of information regurgitated from my previous videos, but I wanted to do this as like a one and only vid for pre-Sunbreak info. And rather than go over each of the armor sets, which would take forever, I'm just going to leave the links to the sets in the descriptions, so you can either use the Imgur links or the Monster Hunter Rise builder link to import them all into the builder and check them out yourself. I feel it's more important to discuss, the MOs, the weapons, and the skills instead, and kind of why we're using stuff rather than just show you, hey, this is what I'm using. And of course, there are a bajillion ways to make every single set and make very similar sets depending on your charms and stuff, and you don't have to have perfect charms, but this group of sets will assume that you do. So if you're looking for non-min-max sets, I'd recommend using the armor set search in the description to import your own charms and then try to build a similar set that way. You can get very close to min-max sets with any charm that has a total of like 4 usable level 2 slots, and by that I mean like attack 2 and 2 level 2 slots, or attack 2, wex 1 and a level 2 slot, or anything that has a total of like 4 level 2 decos. I can't make sets for everyone because everyone has different charms, so that's going to be on you. I'm just going to assume people are using min-max charms at this point, sorry. And so without the armor sets here, let's get into the gunner setups, explain what we're using and why. Alright, let's get into elemental gunning, because to be honest, it's pretty good in Rise. Yes, there's always going to be a best true meta and elemental rarely fits that in Rise, but elemental is pretty competitive. And I find it more fun to build for compared to raw bow guns. There's a few things that you need to realize about elemental gunning before we start building sets. And the first thing is that raw increases your elemental motion value of your shots, because elemental ammo is a modifier to your raw. So if fire ammo does 40 fire element, it is a 0.4 times your raw modifier. So with 200 raw, you're going to be doing 80 fire damage to 100 elemental hit zone, but typically we're going to be hitting for 30, so it's more like 24 damage. But if we have 250 raw, that 40 element is now going to be doing 100 fire damage, so 30 against a 30 hit zone. And of course, increasing the fire damage via the fire attack up skills makes that 0.4 modifier turn into like 0.52, giving you a much bigger chunk of your raw as fire damage. So what I'm trying to get at here is that raw is just as important as your elemental damage up skills. So if you're wondering why most of these sets have attack 7, that's why. The second thing you need to know is that crit element is very hit and miss here. It's quite an investment to get only 15% more elemental damage on crits. Since elemental ammo isn't entirely elemental damage, Ele crit is only boosting part of our damage by 15%. So even with 100% crit, we're still only getting like 10% more damage out of it. That being said, it's not useless, as there's plenty of hit zones that take basically nothing from gun or raw zones and a lot from elemental damage zones. So it's nice to hyper focus on damage against poor raw hit zones. You can't just shoot the target dummy and say, oh, this is bad because, boosting raw does more damage. Well, yeah, the target dummy has like 100 hit zone on the face. Of course, scaling raw is going to do more damage. Anyway, just know that crit element does have some uses, and I will be having some sets that focus on more attack and some that focus on crit Ele. So thirdly, elemental ammo does come in 2 types, standard and pierce. Standard elemental ammo is great with rapid fire, but remember that raw damage gets a 0.7 times penalty during rapid fire, and elemental damage actually gets a 0.5 times, which is pretty awful. Rapid fire elemental is just a net gain for standard ammos because it's a 3 burst volley, but elemental pierce on rapid fire is only a 2 burst, so you're actually not getting any more elemental damage on the burst. And since the bursts take longer to shoot than normal shooting, you really don't want to use rapid fire elemental pierce ammo. And lastly, all the elemental setups should be using ammo up to get 1 more into their clip sizes, which is pretty important as elemental ammo typically has low clip sizes anyway, especially for the rapid fire options. And spare shot is almost always required. There's much fewer craftables for elemental ammo compared to raw, so it's going to help you prolong your sustainability without needing to restock or change to less desirable ammos. Okay, so that was a lot of preface for elemental gunning, but it is really important that you understand how elemental ammo works before diving into it. Because people are all over the place with their builds, it's kind of annoying to see. So with that out of the way, let's go over the guns real quick. So fire ammo. Heavy bowgun is going to be using the Ragnarok mortar. This thing is nasty. 40% base affinity, great shots, decent raw, fat clip size 5 of fire pierce. we're pretty much only going to be using pierce options on heavy bowguns. Now, since this weapon has such high base affinity, crit element is an option here, so there is sets for crit element 3 or peak performance 3. Both are pretty much close to each other damage wise. It's just going to depend on what you're shooting, if it takes more elemental damage or if it takes more raw damage, so pick which one. Now, while you can fit focus 3 and do like a charged elemental heavy bowgun setup, I don't really recommend it. You should be able to finish a hunt with the ammo you have, so spending time charging is just going to be wasting time if anything. Plus, it has the standard fire ammo as backup if you really need it. Now for light bowgun, we're going to be using Rathalos' light bowgun. It's another bowgun that just has everything going for it. It has rapid fire ammo on clip 4, which is great. It's got pierce fire on clip 4, which is still great, and elemental exploit as its rampage skill, which gives you 30% more elemental damage when you hit an elemental hit zone of 25 or higher. It's free damage. So you're going to want to build this one in two ways, since rapid fire will want rapid fire up skill and pierce is going to want more raw. Now, while you can build these for crit element, it's actually rather hard to fit both that and Teo Soul on a set, so I opt for Teo Soul because it's a really cheap alternative to get 10% elemental damage. Getting crit LE3 and 100% affinity, just a little too much to fit in here. Alright, moving on to water ammo. Heavy bowgun has a real tough choice, unfortunately, and I can make a case for both of these bowguns. On one hand, you have Mizu's Mountainous Roar that has an average raw, clip size 4 pierce water. That's pretty much it. It's a solid water bowgun, no real downsides. Or you can go Rampage Water Heavy Bowgun. While it has 20 more raw over Mizu's, it also has severe deviation, and you would lose its entire raw bonus, sacrificing skills to get the deviation and recoil under control compared to Mizu's. So what's the good part? Well, it's clip 5 of Pierce Water over Mizu's clip 4, and you can also get a clip 4 sticky 3, which is insane. Or you can even get para 2s or sleep 2s. Basically, you have options to have backup ammo, which is really nice, and I can't stress how good clip 4 sticky 3s is. So depending on what you're fighting, if you can deal with the deviation, I'd go with Rampage, but otherwise, Mizu clearly the more stable option. For light bowgun, we only have one option, which is Emulsion's light bowgun. The clip sizes make everything for this gun. Its standard clip size 7 with water is gross, and clip 5 with pierce water. I mean, these are heavy level bowguns worth of clip sizes, which is kind of annoying to me. If that wasn't enough, it also has elemental exploit to abuse elemental even more, and even though it doesn't have rapid fire on its water, doesn't really matter. It's still the best water bowgun all around. The 2-in-1 slots are just icing of the cake. This bowgun is it's got everything you want in a water bowgun. Okay, time for ice bowguns. Heavy bowguns can be falling back to old reliable with Barroth's Thorn Cannon. It's just too solid. It's got great raw, natural affinity, level 2 slots, and clip 6 of pierce ice ammo. I would love to have made Deora Grande work with Kushala Soul for the extra affinity, but the clip 3 of pierce ice is just too much of a downgrade. Kushala also can't walk and shoot nor walk and reload its ammo, which Barroth at least has walk and shoot. Maybe the G rank upgrade will save Deora Grande, but right now, it's just pretty bad. On the light bowgun side, we're actually going to be using Deora's Hornet for both rapid fire ice as well as pierce ice. We used to use Gossarogs for rapid fire ice, but with the USJ gloves giving us crit LE2 and weakness exploit, we can reasonably fit in crit LE and 100% crit with Deora's Soul. So this is still only slightly stronger than Gossarog's damage wise, but also Gossarog couldn't get both the fastest recoil and reload, whereas Deora's can. So it's still better DPS even though the damage is still about the same. We also didn't really have a good option for Ice Pierce before, so this is a nice addition. Granted, I'm not even sure if Ice Pierce is really useful for anything except maybe Ragnarok Kodachi's legs. For Thunder Bowguns, starting with heavy again, we're going to be using Zinogre's Bowgun. While this is in a similar boat to water bowguns where the Rampage does have better clip sizes and more ammo and more raw, what Zinogre has going for it is the anti-aquatic species Rampage skill for 10% more damage against pretty much anything that's weak to thunder anyway. So that's basically what saved this from being shelved in favor of Rampage bowguns. I still like Rampage bowgun for having the sticky 3 as backup, but damage wise, Zinogre is the clear winner. For the light bowgun, we do have some good thunder options as well. We're going to be using Kizu for Pierce Thunder, which is a shame because the raw is so low. It has a lot to make up for, but it does have clip 4 of Thunder Pierce and also has Rapid Fire Thunder as an excellent backup option. We will be using crit element on this, not because it's particularly good, but because the Storm Soul option to get extra lightning damage is just awful. So this is just the next best thing. I really wish the Narwa and Ibushi armors had slots, but oh well, maybe G rank. For the rapid fire thunder option, we're actually going to be using Rajang's light bowgun. While Kizu does work, Rajang has better thunder ammo because of its naturally high raw. I have a set here for Rajang's with weakness exploit, but you can't easily swap out those decos for peak performance, which is a fine option as well. They're basically the same damage. I just like to have weakness exploit because it's pretty much unconditional, as you should be hitting the weak spots anyways. Even though we're not running crit element, we can still crit the raw portion of our damage, so crit is still something. Okay, pretty much done with all that. Dragon bowguns, not really going to get into. They're beyond niche. Like, the only thing they're good for is Abushi and Narwa, or maybe some niche group runs that dump a bajillion dragon emos into our Rathlos. But for solo play, not really something you need to invest into. But if you're gonna, bag the Malos. So yeah, that's basically all the elemental gunning info you could want, I'm sure. Again, do check out the Bowgun Bible if you have any other questions, or just yell at me on Discord or Twitter. But yeah, thank you all for watching, and good luck out there, hunters.